She goes and grabs chopsticks and she's digging through the toilet bowl, and then she grabs something, and I remember she pulls it out and she looks at me and she says, "There's your baby." Hi guys, thank you for clicking on this video. Based on the title, you probably already know what I'm going to talk about, and I never thought in a million years that I would be posting such a video. And if you're wondering why I'm posting this video, I believe that my story should be heard. I don't want to keep it a secret. I don't only want to share the good things and the good times. I also want to share the sad times and the bad times. So yeah, it's going to be a long video. So I'll try to leave like timestamps if you want to skip to a certain part, or if it's too TMI for you, go ahead and skip. But let me get started with the beginning. I had a silent miscarriage at 9 weeks. If you don't know what a silent miscarriage is, basically your body shows no signs or symptoms of a miscarriage, being bleeding or cramping. However, my body did not show any signs of that. So basically my baby stopped growing, but my body has not responded to that and has shown no signs. It's almost like my baby was holding on for dear life. But I was told by my doctor that it was no longer a beating heartbeat. And I'll get into that, of the details of my story. And also, for those who are experiencing a miscarriage, I just want to say I am so sorry. It is one of the worst experiences a woman has to go through. And just first and foremost, God never intended for us to have pain or a loss. It is not His design nor His heart. I just know it's not. And so my heart is with you. My hopes in sharing my experience is that we both can find comfort in each other's stories. So yeah, so here's my story. My husband and I have been married for 5 years at this point, and we decided to try to start a family at the beginning of 2026. And we did everything. We went to the hospital, we spoke with our gynecologist, we took vitamins, I was on my prenatal, we were preparing our bodies, preparing our futures. And by March and April, we actively started trying. And by God's grace, I didn't know how quick it would be. I got pregnant at the end of April. I found out at the end of April, and actually I'm going to play the clip where I found out my positive pregnancy test. Oh, where is it? There it is. And right after this video, I decided to share with my husband. I actually took the pregnancy test and hid it under his pillow. And so when he laid down to sleep, he was like, "What is that on my pillow?" And he grabbed it out and he thought it was like a nail filer or like a nail oil pen. And so he was like, he threw it away. But I told him, look at it again. And when he saw those 2 lines, his first reaction was, "Oh no!" And so I think both of us were really shocked because we didn't think how quick it would be. I was really happy and excited because I've been wanting to be a mother this year. And then came first trimester. Now, if you don't know, if the movies has not shown you, it is really terrible. First trimester, the exhaustion, the fatigue, the nausea, retching, vomiting, smell and food aversions. I am an avid coffee drinker, but for 8 weeks I was not drinking coffee. I hated coffee, like capital H, hate coffee, and eggs. Those 2 were disgusting. And also any smells related to chemicals, like my husband's deodorant, my hand soap, any air fresheners would just send me off the rails. So first trimester for me was absolutely terrible. I was bedridden for about 6 weeks, I think. I literally didn't go anywhere. I couldn't do dishes. I couldn't wash my laundry. I couldn't walk my dog. My husband did everything. I couldn't go to work. I didn't go to church. I was just bedridden for 6 weeks. It was some pretty trying times. It was for me mentally and emotionally, physically as well. Yeah, anyways, moving on to our first 6 week ultrasound scan. That was our first doctor visit at 6 weeks, and met with our doctor. Her name's Dr. Tao. She's an amazing, very sensitive woman, Vietnamese, but she speaks an amazing English. And she gave me an ultrasound, and it was amazing. I got to see the baby's heartbeat for the first time. Who knew at 6 weeks it would be an actual heartbeat? It just goes to show that even at 6 weeks, God already sees life. Like, if a heartbeat means life, that means at 6 weeks there was life in me. I just remember looking at the TV screen, like this huge screen of the ultrasound, and I just like the doctor was like, there it is, there's the heartbeat, and you can see these red and blue lines, and that means like cardiac activity. And I was just so in awe. I'm like, it's real. It's like, yes, it's one thing to see it on the pregnancy stick, but to see like something that's moving. It wasn't moving, but it was like active. To see something active, it was like, yeah, I was so excited. And so the nausea and the retching and all the fatigue continued on, until my follow-up ultrasound scan at week 9. And so 9 weeks, we went back for our appointment. And I remember just walking into the ultrasound room. The technician and the nurse was there, and she used the probe, and she was probing around my belly. And she took a long time. Like, she was just longer than expected. And she kept saying, "Trời ơi, trời ơi." I think she couldn't find any activity. And at that point, when she kept saying "Trời ơi," like, she didn't even say anything. She hasn't acknowledged me. She hasn't given any news, but I could just feel and sense something was wrong. And at that point, tears flooded my eyes. Like, I just began to start crying because I just knew that something is wrong. I just didn't know what it was, but something was wrong. She wasn't my doctor, so technically she couldn't give me the results, but she kind of just gave me briefly, like, there's no activity. And then we were led out to the waiting room, and we sat there waiting for our doctor to give us the news. I just remember my husband, I was emotional at this point, but my husband put his arm around me, and he was just like, "Don't worry, we will trust God. God will bring us through this. Just, hold on to God." And then we walked into the doctor's room, and the first word she was like, "I don't have good news for you guys. I have bad news." And I just lost it. Like, it was like confirmation to the bad news that I already knew. I just lost it. She said, "Your baby has no heartbeat." And it's like, after that, all sounds just like drowned out. And the whole ride back home was just like numbness. I remember the doctor did say, "We'll wait 1 week to see for a miracle." And I remember when she said miracle, I was just like, suddenly like faith arise in me, and I was like, okay, we're going to see a miracle. My God is going to see me through. I'm going to have a testimony. I'm going to give glory to God. My baby's going to live again. God's going to like resurrect this like fetus with no heartbeat. I was so full of faith, It's a weird thing because it was like sadness, shocked, but also like faith and like this readiness to fight. And after that, we met with my pastor and his wife. They prayed for us. We went back home, and it was all a blur. Looking back now, it's really a blur because it's like so many emotions hit you at once. You're left confused. You're left angry. You're left like, why? You're left just, it's all these things that, all at once. And so a week goes by. This whole time I'm praying, I'm contending, I'm just like declaring the word of God. I'm just declaring truth over my womb, all these like healing Bible verses, and just praying to God and like almost bribing God, I'm like, "God, if you do this, and I will do this. If you do this, and I'll testify. If you do this all the days of my life, I will testify of this baby. And all these things over the week. Then for our next follow-up visit after a week, we went back. Still no heartbeat. And I don't know why, but at this second follow-up visit, suddenly I became numb. Like, I think walking into the hospital, walking into the ultrasound room, speaking to the doctor, and then going home, this whole process, I showed no emotions. I spoke no words. It's almost like my body was protecting itself from the bad news that I already was gonna hear. And I had no emotions. I was so numb. I felt nothing. I cannot explain how I felt. It was nothing. After the hospital visit, we went to lunch, and I just remember the lunch was like numb. The food was not delicious. There was no conversation spoken between my husband and I. It was such a dark time, and the whole day I was like numb. I went back home. I took a nap. I was numb. I didn't want to feel, talk, or say anything. After I woke up from my nap, I remember it was like around 5 p.m. and this deep depression hit me, and I felt so dark. It was just so dark and so deep, and I just had no hope. And all I knew was I just needed my husband. I just needed my husband. As I went to him, and I think at the moment he was a little bit under stress as well. He didn't know how to cope with this grief, and we were both kind of needing each other's comfort, but didn't know how to give it. And that's something else I want to talk about, is also the marriage portion of a miscarriage and how it affects a marriage. It's so important during this process and journey that both the husband and wife have unity and have this same almost point of view and perspective. And if one grieves another way, the other should respect each other's grief. However, at that point, we're both just lost and confused. And so it broke out into a fight. I was like, I yelled at him and I said, "You're going to ruin this marriage. How you're acting is going to ruin this marriage." And I walked away. He was angry and I was sad. I just remember walking up the stairs and he ran after me. And he was angry and I was sad, and we looked into each other's eyes, and I just said, and then he just said, "I'm sorry." And then we just broke down crying, and we just hugged. And it's almost like all this confusion and all this anger and all this sadness is okay, as long as we have each other, we'll be okay, We ended up, just hugging for a really long time, and he just hugged me, and I just wept. All the numbness and all the pain that I was suppressing just suddenly came out that night. It just all came to the surface, and I was crying because I'm there's something not living in me. I'm carrying a dead baby. That's how I felt at that moment. Yes, I want to believe it's gonna live. I want to believe, but yet at the same time, reality is hitting me that there's an actual dead fetus in me, and I didn't know how to feel. It's I'm living, but there's something dead in me. It's a really weird feeling. And but of course, having a comfort of a person physically hugging you, physically walking with you is more than words can count. It's so important. I cannot imagine a woman going through a miscarriage alone. It takes so much strength to go through this. So long story short, 2 weeks goes by. The story, the baby still did not have no heartbeat. And honestly, by that time, I was surrendered. I had faith. Yes, I was declaring. Yes, I was believing for a miracle. But at the same time, I was okay, God, whatever happens, happens. But I know you'll be with me. So it's almost like me and my husband went to that hospital visit with surrendered hands, and for the final ultrasound, the doctor just said still no heartbeat, and we had to do a spontaneous abortion. Otherwise, an infection would start and it would cause problems to the woman. So a spontaneous abortion is either done through a DNC procedure, which is a surgical procedure that removes the fetus, or you take a pill, which is an abortion pill. Technically, you take the pill and it contracts your uterus and pushes out the fetus. Technically, the right term is gestational sac. At 6 to 12 weeks, it's still a small sac. It has no form. So I remember June 18th was the day I went to the hospital, put me in my hospital gown, had me stay there for 8 hours to monitor me. And I took the 2 pills at around 10 a.m. And by an hour later, I was in agonizing pain It was the worst pain I've ever experienced. I was holding on to the hospital bed for so tightly. I was in pain for 4 hours. Like I was literally, turning and like groaning and whining for 4 hours as my uterus was contracting and just blood was coming out. And I know this part may be TMI for those if you don't want to listen to this part, but for a woman who has been through this, you can relate. But if you want to skip, here's your reminder to skip. An abortion, a miscarriage, a woman loses so much blood. I cannot tell you how much blood I lost. Like my doctor did not alert me about this part. So I wore a normal pad. I thought it was just going to be like a period kind of blood, in that kind of blood count. But no, it was, you need like a whole panty underwear padding. Like I did not know that, and I had blood dripping down my legs as I was walking to the hospital. Like I was so shy, I was so ashamed. I sat on the doctor's chair and I stained the doctor's chair with my blood. Thank the Lord I was wearing a black dress so you couldn't see the blood, but my whole back dress was soaked in blood. Yeah, they didn't warn me. One pad is not enough. I was changing pads every 30 minutes. In 2 hours, I wore 4 pads. It was a lot of blood. And basically, after 4 hours, I was in such retching pain that I just knocked out. I fell asleep and the nurses were waiting because technically the doctor wanted to take a sample of my tissue to do research on what happened. They were kind of waiting for the gestational sac to pass. And by the time I woke up from my nap, it was 3 p.m. The nurse told me to go to the bathroom and check if it had passed. So I go to the bathroom and I don't see anything. I'm looking for like some clot, even though there's so many clots that are passing, like thick blood clots. But I didn't know what I was looking for. Nobody can prepare you for this. Okay? No, like... They kept asking me, do you see it? What am I looking for? And finally, like as I stood up, I heard something drop in the toilet bowl. It was a plop. And I was like, could that be it? Is that what they're looking for, the gestational sac? And so I called in the nurse and I said, I don't know what I'm looking for, but I think something did fell in. It could have been it. And so we needed to look into the toilet bowl, but it was, bloody. And I was willing to put my hands in to grab it. Like I was, they needed it so badly, and it was almost like causing this, problem that I was like, okay, I'll put my hands in. And she was like, no, it's okay. Let me grab chopsticks. And she goes and grabs chopsticks, and she's digging through the toilet bowl, and then she grabs something. And I remember she pulls it out and she looks at me and she says, there's your baby. Like, why would you say that? First of all, I will address like bedside manners in Vietnam later on, but language barrier, culture barrier, whatever you want to call it, you don't say that. You don't say that to a mother that just passed a baby. Yes, I know it had no form, it had nothing, but I remember as I looked at it, it was almost like looking at something that failed in you and that couldn't grow. It's like my body couldn't grow that. Yeah, it was a very traumatic experience, and I got numb and I walked away, and I just stared at the wall because I was like, what did I just look at? It's not something I wish upon anyone, to see something that was once growing inside of you, now outside of you, being thrown into the trash. After that, they confirmed it was the gestational sac and that it has passed. And so technically, I'm free to go home. It was an 8-hour day. My body was exhausted. I was just physically, emotionally exhausted. I went home, just, I guess, trying to heal. I don't know what to even do. As the weeks go by, I had so many follow-up hospital visits, and this is something I also want to mention in my video, just going back to the whole bedside manners and cultural difference in the West and in Asia. But just what I've seen in Vietnamese hospitals, even though we went to an international hospitals, but the doctors were still Vietnamese. it's just a lack of care, a lack of warmth, a lack of sensitivity to a grieving mother. I just felt coldness from the nurses and the staff, and I don't know, they're very short with their words and very straightforward with their words. They don't show any sense of like sorry for your loss. And I just remember every single follow-up visit, because I had to come back to do an ultrasound to see if all the tissue had passed, just to make sure it's all empty. And so I think I went back 3 times. Every single visit, I would be sitting in the waiting room with expectant mothers. And these mothers were like 40 weeks pregnant, 35 weeks pregnant, like they're big, and they're happy, they're joyful, they're with their husband, their husbands are holding their bag, they're walking like wobbling with their slippers and their big dress. And they're smiling, and I know I don't want to be bitter. My prayer to God was, please don't make me bitter, God. But it's something about putting a woman who just lost a baby in the same room with women who are expecting a baby, like out of respect for that mother who just had a miscarriage. I feel like we should have a separate room. I don't know, like, and the worst part is that the hospital that I went to is that any pregnant mothers get a sticker. And I remember I got my sticker at week 6. They put a sticker on your right shoulder to state that you are a pregnant woman and to be careful, for the nurses and staff to watch out for you. So those pregnant women all had yellow stickers, right? And obviously I didn't have mine because I'm not pregnant, but I'm still in that waiting room. And I don't know, I'm sure they're not staring at me, but it just felt like the woman was staring at me and saying like, oh, she, like, it's a sense of like they get the sticker and I don't. It's a very childish thing, but it's something that really stuck with me, and I really dislike about my experience at the hospital here in Vietnam. But after 3 follow-up visits, my doctor finally cleared me and said that my uterus is now all empty, all tissue has passed, all fluid has passed, and I'm now ready to start the healing process for my uterus to start healing. She's given me multivitamins just to get my health back to par. So the story ends there, with the whole miscarriage. Of course, the healing journey has not ended. Grief has come in really extreme and mild and moderate waves. I've experienced anger, I've experienced bitterness, I've experienced bargaining, I've experienced depression, all these things. It's so funny because some days I'll be like, I'm good, I'm great, yes, like I'm back to myself now, no longer morning sickness, I'm gonna exercise, I'm gonna diet, I'm going to control my life, right? And that's the part. It's like, I think when you're so out of control that you want to control your life, I see myself doing that, where I'm like, okay, I'm gonna diet, I'm gonna go on the best diet, I'm gonna go on the best exercise regimen, I'm going to try to control my life to the T, so that this can never happen again. And just something that God is teaching me is like, I want what I want in my timeline. I was trying to get back to work ASAP, and just trying to make myself like have meaning and purpose, because I think I lost this part of me that had so much meaning, that I'm trying to fulfill that emptiness with purpose. When you are a mother to be, it's almost like your body aligns to that meaning and you're like, wow, this is what I was made to be. Like when you are pregnant and you're waiting to be a mother, I don't know why, but it felt like just this thing of like, this is my purpose. I'm meant to carry life. I'm meant to give birth to life. And then when that's taken away from you and when you don't have that purpose anymore, it's almost like, okay, well, let me try to find purpose now. Let me, what was I doing before, right? I have a coffee shop, I was a teacher, I'm a wife. And so I do all these things to try to fulfill that emptiness in my heart, but it doesn't fulfill it. That is the battle, I think, post miscarriage. So I'm not sure if it's just me, but I'm sure other women have gone through of just trying to fill that emptiness that was once there. And obviously people say, yes, only God can fill that emptiness and that void. And, that's a whole other conversation of like, how do you talk to God after disappointment? How do you hope again? Do you even want to try again after such loss? It's all part of the journey. But I want to end this video here that people may say, would you go back and never have gotten pregnant then? not having known you go through a miscarriage. And to be honest, yes, I'm grieving. Yes, I'm in pain. Yes, there's sorrow, there's grief, there's all these things, but I would not trade it for anything else. I truly believe that pain is necessary as a part of life. I've seen beauty in pain, and it sounds so cheesy, like, beauty from ashes kind of thing, but it is so true. Like, it's only in the depths of the deep, deep, deep depths of your pain and your sorrow and your grief. One, you find God. Two, there's connection in humanity. When you're just going through life and just going through the motions, you don't really connect to people in the way that when both people are hurting and both people find comfort in both each other's story, there's like this connection of like, humanity comes back. And I think we live in such a social age where we're just online all the time, and we just close off our emotions and we're just looking at a screen and we become numb, and like they call it brain rot. But something about pain that just brings up your humanity and brings out like the beauty of life and how we're made to be. I was made to be a mom. I was made to cry. I was made to have joy. And just the love that I found in my husband, him being there for me, the 8-hour hospital visit, the whole time he sat on a uncomfortable metal chair next to my hospital bed, holding my hand and praying and interceding on behalf of me. Like, he was so uncomfortable and he was so tired, but he was there the whole time just, with me. And so it just showed me that even through pain that you can, there's love. And I think that's worth it. I know it sounds crazy to say like this miscarriage is worth it. It's worth it. This pain, this journey, I'm willing to walk through it only because I have God. Only because I have God. I would not trade it for the world. This is part of my story. It's something that I will embrace. It's something that God will use for His glory. And I'm okay with it. And I'm okay with it, and I'm happy with it. And so, yeah, I don't even know how to end this video. Yeah. So I keep this on my table. This is my the week that I found out that it lost its heartbeat. And so I'll always remember this as a part of my life. Thank you guys for watching. I hope I don't make you sad as well. My hope in this video is to bring hope and encouragement that even through suffering, there's joy. There is joy in the details of life. And so I'm going to continue to praise God. I'm going to continue to worship Him. He does not change. He's faithful. And there will be a day when I will thank Him. I'll be with Him in heaven where there's no pain, there's no tears, there's no sorrow. But until then, I will praise Him through this pain, and I'll worship Him through this grief. So thank you guys so much. And if you are someone going through grief as well, and sorrow and pain or suffering in any kind, there's a video that I watched that really helped me. It's a sermon by Bill Johnson the week after his wife passed away by cancer, and that really encouraged me, and I'll leave the link down below and you can check it out. Yeah, so thank you for watching. Don't worry about me, guys. I'll be okay. I have a great husband. I have a great God, and life is good. Life is always good.